Exam guides give vague advice like, structure your essay, or use academic vocabulary, but fail to give you specific sentence-by-sentence instructions. With my sentence guide, the essay almost writes itself.
Hello there, IELTS students. This episode we're going to look at vocabulary. And a lot of students worry about vocabulary, whether they're using the right words, whether they're using academic vocabulary. And to be honest with you, it's quite a justified worry because about 25% of your score, both in the writing and the speaking, is based on your use of vocabulary. Okay? And maybe just classified as lexical resource or some other name, but either way, it's very, very important. And in this podcast, we're going to look at different ways to boost your vocabulary, okay? And this is really important, as I said, because if you're wanting to score 7, 8, or 9, then you're going to have to use lexical expressions. You're going to have to use the collocations, and you're going to have to be very careful with your word choice. That's using the right word in the appropriate moment. Okay? But first, before we start, so what I wanted to share before we start was just a phrase I read the other day. It goes, if you reach for the sky, no, it doesn't say that. It says reach for the sky, because if you miss, you will still be among the stars. You see? And I just wanted you to bear that in mind while you're preparing for your IELTS. Like if you're shooting for band 7 or band 8, then why don't you just start with your preparation and prepare as though you were aiming for a 9, and then you'll have much more determination, much more discipline, because you'll have to put in the hours necessary as though you were aiming for a 9, you see? And that kind of attitude. Another attitude which I think would be insanely valuable for you is probably the same attitude as the Japanese manufacturers had. It is basically called Kaizen, and it's a philosophy, an attitude of just constant improvement. And in the sentence guide course, I tried to develop this because you get about 8 essay checks, and after each essay check, you have to make a list of your errors. You have to submit this list of errors to the tutor or to myself, whoever's doing the essay correction. And then you have to make note of what the mistakes were, and you have to try and avoid making the same mistakes again. So it's this same philosophy, and it's really what's helped in pushing students to get in really good scores. It's this philosophy of Kaizen. So I'd jump on Wikipedia and just read about that, because it's a useful philosophy to adopt. Now, let's have a look at vocabulary. We're going to look at 5 easy ways to boost your vocabulary, to get the vocabulary, to keep the vocabulary you need to score high. Right then. So, number 1, learn and write down about 6 useful words every day, but not just everyday words, okay? What I want you to do is use the words from the academic word list. Now, if you go to the blog post, if you just go to IELTSPodcast.com, there you'll find a link, or you can just put it in Google, but there's the academic word list. And what this is a list of all the most common words found in academic literature. So if you use these words in your writing, you're closer to writing in that academic style that IELTS requests for you. It's also called English for Academic Purposes. So just go to Google, put academic word list, and you'll see it there. These are the most common words you will find in academic literature. Okay, so there's like different sublists, and so they've got the most frequent ones, you've got the most and then the less frequent ones, but here's just a few of them. So we've got benefit, define, environment, factor, issue, research, vary. And here's just one exercise that I suggest to my students when I receive essays and they say the most important, for example, I'll just give you a sentence, the most important thing to consider when evaluating, I don't know, global warming's effect on the earth. Yeah, we can go through that sentence, and if you were listening carefully, you would have heard the most important thing. Now, what could have we changed? What could we use instead of thing? What word could we use that sounds more academic? Well, we could have said factor. We could have said issue. Yeah. So it's just one small way to improve your language skills. Okay, and like I said before, if you go to IELTSPodcast.com, find this post. It'll probably be in the writing section, and you'll find a link to the academic word list. I'll probably just post a PDF up there, and why not do that exercise? Write an essay, go through, and just try and change some of the words. Next, we're going to look at creating word families. Okay, so number 2 on the way of boosting your vocabulary. Okay, we're going to look at word families. So what this means is, like in English, okay, when we learn one word, usually it's got a root. For example, the noun residence, okay, means a person's home. But from this noun, we can get the verb to reside. Okay, I'm currently residing in Budapest, for example. And then we can get the adjective residential, okay, from the noun form. Let's see. So I live in a residential area. And can you see, just from one word, if we know the formulas, we can boost our vocabulary significantly. And I don't know about the other languages, but I know this is quite true for European languages, because it's the same in Spanish. And it's basically a case of learning the formula. Okay, just like we learned the formula of putting ed on the end if we want the past tense, we can also get nouns, verbs, and adjectives from the same root. Okay, but we just need to know the formulas for transforming them. Another way to boost your vocabulary is to learn about the suffixes and prefixes, and I've talked about this previously. You know, like if you put pre before a word, okay, we could say a pre-game strategy. It just means a game, a strategy to do before the game, because of the prefix pre. Okay, and yeah, it's really quite interesting. I find it super interesting anyway. But what you can do is just look at all the different origins of those. Like, you know, if you put D in front of something, we can say decompose instead of compose. And now we've boosted our vocabulary. We've doubled it just by using that structure. So I want to compose a song, yeah? And it's not always sort of like the opposite, but for example, I want to compose a song, yeah, and then put D on, and that means sort of like the reverse, and decompose. For example, the rubbish in my garden is decomposing. Okay, so jump online and just do a tutorial. Just put into Google suffixes and prefixes, get onto YouTube, watch it, and you'll find that there are formulas there where you can basically increase your vocabulary substantially just by learning the rules and experimenting by putting the prefixes and suffixes onto the words and finding new words. Okay? Right then. So the next skill we can learn to boost the vocabulary, okay, number 3 is paraphrasing. So paraphrasing basically means to rewrite or reiterate a sentence or a phrase in another way. I'll give you an example. The huge block of flats will be demolished by the end of the school quarter. Okay? The huge block of flats will be demolished by the end of the school quarter. It can be rephrased to, the enormous apartment block will be torn down by the end of the school semester. Okay, or school term, depending on which vocabulary you're going to use, either British or American. So the key to successful paraphrasing is to identify the keywords and then find synonyms. So there's quite a few. We've put, instead of huge in the first sentence, we changed that to enormous. Instead of block of flats, we said apartment block. Okay, English is really quite versatile in this sense, because we've got oftentimes like I just demonstrated, we've got the American word and the British word, and with regards to vocabulary, the English language is quite flexible like that, and the examiners are rather flexible. But what they're not flexible with is the grammar rules and the spellings. So if you're going to use American spellings, use American spellings throughout all your writing. And likewise, if you're going to use British ones all the way through. You won't get punished for using just American or just British, but you will get punished for mixing them both. And that goes, that's the same for your grammar rules as well. Okay, now then. So let's see. Here's another way to boost your vocabulary. The fourth method is making a list of linking words. Okay, and we need to remember that coherence and cohesion is one of the four principles in the criteria used to score your exam. Okay, both in the speaking and the writing. So this is why it's essential to use these connectors and linking words in creating a very succinct, logical, and lucid argument. Okay, by lucid argument, I mean clear, basically. So the connectors will be important when you develop your opinion and you debate. Okay. So yeah, when you develop your opinion and when you're debating. So I'm just going to give you a very brief overview. So if we want to present a point, we can say firstly, okay, if it's like the body paragraph, for example, firstly, the rise of global warming is largely attributed to the increase in factory production, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then if we wanted to go further, adding more information, we can say, moreover, this phenomenon is emphasized in countries that are developing and are using a lot of natural resources. Okay, and we can also, what's interchangeable with moreover, we can say additionally. And by the way, these are for your writing, not for your speaking. It's not common to use moreover and additionally in this formal academic word list in our speaking. Okay, so, and if we want to contrast information, we can say in comparison. Okay, so I'll just give you an example. Firstly, the issue of global warming has caused serious problems amongst the Western world. Moreover, each country appears to be blaming the other country. Full stop. In comparison, a more proactive approach would be to form international treaties that could seek to limit global emissions. This was seen with the Kyoto Agreement in the early 90s. However, its effects were short-lived, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And we're probably not going to go into so much detail, but I just wanted to give you an example of using these linking words. And then if we want to conclude, we can just say, and we're going to just conclude, not in our body paragraphs, but in the final paragraph, we're going to say, to conclude, it can be largely seen that each country has a very important role to play with regards to reducing global emissions. Full stop. Okay, so if you want to get these skills, these linking words, I would start writing sentences out each day, getting feedback, and why don't you just focus for 1 week on linking words? Write an essay every day. In fact, there's a funny story here. In my in the sentence guide sort of like forum we've got on Facebook group. It's just a group exclusively for members of the sentence guide course who are doing the sentence guide course to pass their IELTS exam. One student, she proposed, I think it was Denise, she proposed, right, I'm going to write an essay every single day. Okay, and they all commit, and they all sort of like comment on each other's essays, and it's just a good way of getting even more feedback and just helping each other out and getting that sense of sort of like camaraderie. Yeah, everyone helping each other. Now then, the final method, the penultimate method, because I'm going to give you an extra method, which is quite funny actually. I thought it was quite funny. But the penultimate method is to read and listen. This is basic, and I've said this a million times, but yep, go to BBC, go to the 6 minutes one, and I'm saying the 6 minutes one because it's got the kind of topics that are seen on the exam. These cover education, environment, technology, health, medicine, government, economy, crime, business, food, society, all of these. Okay? And pick one of those podcasts, one of those audio recordings, and you've got the transcript there, which is pretty much a sort of like, it's not a word for word transcript, but it's a very, very close guide. And listen, and not only are you going to hear the words produced, hear the words used, but you just engage in more sentences, and you can go through the transcript, highlight the important words, and even in this audio recording, they've got definitions and descriptions of each of the tricky words, and the tricky words they're highlighting and emphasizing, and they even comment on them at the end of the podcast. These are the words which are usually your topic specific vocabulary. Okay, so it's almost, they might as well just call it IELTS preparation, okay, because it's really that valuable. And also, if you're living in Australia, it's even more beneficial because you're going to get used to the British accent, okay? And they speak at a slightly slower than native English speakers. However, it's a good way to learn and just boost your vocabulary. So why not listen to one of those a day as well on your train ride to work, while you're coming home, and it's not totally dry and boring. Okay, so what I want to say there is that they've got occasional jokes in there, so it's quite funny. Now, the final one, okay, is this Chrome extension, and I only discovered this morning, but it made me laugh. All right, so what you can do with this Chrome extension is you install it. It's called, what's it called now? Let's see. I only done. 1 second. Yeah, it's called iSpeech. Okay, so you're using your Chrome browser, and maybe you're listening to a podcast. Maybe you're just browsing the BBC. All right, and what you can do is you can just highlight some of the text, and it reads it to you. It's quite funny. All right, so I'm just gonna highlight it. And I'm going to just go to sentenceguide.com, and I'm just going to play it. Let me just set up the speaker so it comes out correctly. And yeah, you can just listen to it while you're reading. So it's a similar thing to the BBC 6 minutes, but the funny thing, it's not totally funny, but it comes out a little bit stranger, obviously, because they're not speaking, but it's still a good way, So let me just give you a demonstration.
My mind goes blank. I cannot organize my thoughts. You may have good English skills, but that still is not enough because on exam day you must think of ideas usually on some topic you have no interest in. And then you have to think of an opinion, present it, structure it, write it, etc. etc. All in 40 minutes.
So, yeah, that was just shown the sentenceguide.com. But you can see it's not a totally natural way, but it's better than nothing. And a lot of students, sometimes they'll see a word and then they'll guess how it's pronounced. And sometimes that's valid, but sometimes it's not. And you can learn the word incorrectly from the first time and then start doing what's called a fossilized error and pronouncing it that way, unfortunately, for the rest of your life, which is very sad. All right, well, those are the 5+1 or the 6 different ways you can boost your vocabulary. And yeah, I'd strongly recommend just choosing one of them and start implementing it on a daily schedule. Okay, just do it for a week or maybe for a month. 6 minutes English, 1 6-minute audio recording a day, just different things like that, and just commit to it, and soon you'll find your vocabulary increasing. Okay, have a fantastic day and all the best. And remember what I said at the beginning, reach for the sky, because if you miss, you'll still be among the stars. Take care.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.